It's no secret that Mike Trout is the best player in baseball today. Some would argue that he's the greatest baseball player of all time, and despite being only 29 years old, he has a path to receiving that exact title. Regardless of who you think the GOAT is of baseball players, Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, and Hank Aaron, just to name a few, you can't deny how valuable Trout has been to both the Angels and Major League Baseball as a whole. And although the title of this video might seem a little bit fishy, just stay with me here. Why would the Angels want to hold on to a player when their organization has so many other holes to fill? It's really just about selling tickets for the overall financial welfare of the Los Angeles Angels? If that's indeed the case, the Angels want to sell postseason tickets, and regardless of their moves in previous off seasons to build a team around Trout, they haven't made the playoffs in 7 consecutive years. That includes last season's very small 60-game season. And if the Angels are considering moving on from their franchise cornerstone, should Chicago White Sox general manager Rick Hahn look into pursuing a trade for the superstar center fielder? It's important to note that Trout's price tag for a blockbuster trade will be insane. Why, you might ask? Here are some of his monster numbers to give you a better idea of why the Angels will ask for a king's ransom in order to dump his contract onto Chicago's payroll. Let's dive into some of Mike Trout's statistics throughout his career. The 3-time MVP and 8-time All-Star has a career 74.8 wins above replacement. The former late first-round pick is the only player in MLB history to top 70 WAR by his age 29 season. Assuming that he continues to perform at a rate similar to how he has for his career, he will be considered one of baseball's best players of all time. He's on the path to finishing his MLB Wikipedia page above a 300 batting average, with the ability to win as many MVP awards as Barry Bonds. With Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert under contract for most of this decade, 2 outfield spots are already filled for the foreseeable future. However, Jimenez is a huge hole in left field who can't stay healthy. Robert is coming off a major hip flexor injury. As such, center field and left field are up for grabs if Rick Hahn doesn't feel comfortable that Jimenez and Robert can pick up where they left off in 2022. As for right field, there's still a huge question mark in the future regarding who the White Sox will turn to for their future position 9 needs. There's also some uncertainty regarding Eloy Jimenez's ability to play left field. After all, his injury from this past spring training came from mistiming a fly ball. This could potentially free up 2 outfield slots for Trout to slide into. What originally looked like a sure thing from left to right field is now anything but. Adam Eaton remains the lone healthy outfielder, and with Robert out for most of the 2021 season, we're going to see more and more of Andrew Vaughn in left field and Adam Engel in center. The White Sox desperately need Trout's services. The problem is, do the White Sox have enough to pull off a blockbuster trade with the Angels? The biggest question here is the Angels would be willing to part with Trout. It wouldn't be easy giving up the best player in baseball and would require a massive haul for the Angels to do so. We've seen superstar players in the past, such as Mookie Betts and Francisco Lindor, get traded away towards the end of their contracts to save money. The only problem is Mike Trout is nowhere near the end of his contract. In fact, last offseason, he signed a whopping 12-year, $426 million contract extension that looks to keep him in Anaheim throughout his age 38 season. With Anthony Rendon, Shohei Ohtani, and Trout certainly managing the heart of that Angels lineup, they appear to be in win-now mode. It's safe to assume that Mike Trout is currently untouchable, but if the Angels continue to lose, will they want to continue paying that hefty salary? This is where the White Sox could come into play. Remember, the Texas Rangers moved on from one of the all-time greats in Alex Rodriguez. The Angels are a fringe city of LA, so they sometimes have a better financial state than the Dallas-Arlington metropolitan area. That being said, A-Rod never had a major secondary piece around him. One could make the case that Rendon and Ohtani have enough upside to lead the Angels into wanting to keep Trout. However, they've gone all in before and failed. What's to say this 2021 team will make its first postseason appearance since 2014? What would a Mike Trout trade potentially look like for the White Sox? Let's just say he won't be cheap. There is no shortage of young talent on the south side and throughout their farm system. If the Angels choose to take the same rebuilding route that the White Sox took in 2016, there's no better place to look at than the Sox themselves. White Sox fans are used to giving up major league talent for young potential stars, so this will be some of a role reversal these past 4 years. However, a trade for Trout is certainly different than the James Shields Fernando Tatis Jr. debacle. Shields was never a Hall of Fame pitcher, whereas Trout is one of the game's greatest ball players. Anyway, let's take a look at some of potential trade packages between the Sox and the Angels. Considering how big Trout's contract is, it might take a third or even fourth team to make this deal work. Remember, the A-Rod trade almost involved three teams back in 2004 between the Rangers, White Sox, and Red Sox. That was a supposed three-team blockbuster that would have involved A-Rod, Maglio Ordonez, and Nomar Garcia-Parra. In this mega deal, the Angels receive Yoan Moncada, Andrew Vaughn, Jared Kelly, Matthew Thompson, and the White Sox receive just Mike Trout. In this trade package, the Angels jumpstart their rebuild with two cornerstones at first and third base in Moncada and Vaughn. Moncada has already proved he can compete at the major league level, and Vaughn has all the makings of a great first baseman. The Angels also receive two young but very strong arms in Jared Kelly and Matthew Thompson to help bolster their rotation for the future. I would call this trade a slight win for the Angels, especially since Moncada can also play second base if needed. Another trade could be the Angels receiving Vaughn, Michael Kopech, Garrett Crochet, Nick Madrigal, and Jared Kelly. The White Sox receive Mike Trout and Griffin Canning. In this potential trade package, the Angels completely decimate the White Sox farm system. The Southsiders would be giving up all five of their top prospects in return for Trout and a solid young starter in Griffin Canning. I'm sure the White Sox would be wary to do this trade and have to completely revamp the farm system, but when it's the best player in baseball, you never know. Besides, second base is more of a luxury than a necessity, which is why Madrigal is included in this trade scenario. I would rate this trade about even for both teams, especially because Madrigal sometimes only bats ninth in the batting order. For the Angels, they could also receive Eloy Jimenez, Michael Kopech, Nick Madrigal, and Jonathan Stever, and the White Sox would receive just Mike Trout. In this trade, the White Sox are giving up the extremely powerful bat of Jimenez, along with a great young arm in Kopech. They also give up their 2018 third overall pick, Nick Madrigal, and prospect Jonathan Stever. While I love Eloy, personally as a White Sox fan, I would make this trade in a heartbeat. With an outfield of Mike Trout and Luis Robert, it hardly matters who that left fielder is, as long as he can perform at an average level. I would call this trade a win for the White Sox. In fact, this trade scenario allows the White Sox to keep Adam Eaton in right field. Eaton has, of course, played Gold Glove winning defense in right field and was a major contributor when the Nationals won the World Series in 2019. Keeping Eaton on the roster is a huge plus because this trade allows Trout to occasionally play left field. The White Sox want to preserve Trout's career as much as possible, which means having him occasionally play the seventh position. Unfortunately, as Sox fans know way too well, Jerry Reinsdorf has been very timid to go into his pocket for superstar players. Would Reinsdorf be willing to play roughly $30 million that Mike Trout commands on his contract each year? It's hard to say. Remember, teams want to avoid the luxury tax at all costs. This is the main reason why the Red Sox moved on from Mookie Betts. Reinsdorf knows that the current White Sox team is capable of winning now, despite only having the 15th highest payroll in Major League Baseball. One benefit the White Sox have for the future is if they want to trade any of their core players, they're all on cost-controlled contracts and, of course, locked up for a long time. This will make players such as Jimenez and Moncada look much more intriguing to potential trade suitors if that day arrives. In other words, Jimenez and Moncada have team-friendly deals. This would help the Angels front office absorb the Trout trade more easily because they can make future free agent moves without worrying about the luxury tax. If somehow a trade for Mike Trout to the South Side were to go through, the Angels would be committing to a full-blown rebuild. They obviously love Mike Trout, but throughout the course of his career, they've struggled to put a competent team around him. Even this year with the additions they've made, I still don't believe it will be enough to make a deep run into the playoffs. They lack quality starting pitching and bullpen depth. Mike Trout could be on the move in the coming years, and I'm sure any White Sox fan would love to have him. The question that Reinsdorf and Hahn need to be asking themselves is, can Trout give the White Sox a better chance of winning the World Series in 2021 and 22 if they're still able to keep Robert Abreu and a couple of other pieces in addition to getting Trout? It would certainly seem the case, especially if Yermin Mercedes continues to be a force at the dish. Do the White Sox really need Moncada, Jimenez, Vaughn, and other pieces if they have the greatest of all time in center field? Time would only tell. If the White Sox were to make a move of this magnitude, it would make waves throughout not only Chicago, but the entire Major League Baseball. Chicago has never seen a baseball player this good in the city, and he would be an instant star. And yes, that includes the likes of Ernie Banks, Frank Thomas, Billy Williams, Luke Appling, and other notable Hall of Famers for the Cubs and White Sox. The White Sox would undoubtedly have to give up a core piece, being one of Robert Jimenez Moncada, or completely drain the entire farm system to keep the Major League roster intact, Both of those methods to acquiring Trout have cons, but you can never be disappointed in getting the best player on the planet. All in all, there are three major obstacles that stand in the way of Mike Trout in the black and white pinstripes. The first is the Angels had to be shopping Mike Trout. It certainly looks like he's untouchable, as the Angels look to make one more last push these next couple of years competing with Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon on the roster. The next obstacle would be the White Sox agreeing to part ways with major pieces of the organization to acquire a player of Mike Trout's caliber. We have rarely seen the White Sox make a move of this sort in the immediate past, as normally it's the White Sox giving up superstars for young talent and prospects. Some people were shocked when they gave up Dane Dunning for Lance Lynn, but it's a move that winning teams must make. Dunning wasn't starting pitcher of last season's elimination game against the Athletics. The third and arguably hardest obstacle to overcome would be convincing Jerry Reinsdorf to pay Mike Trout's salary. As I mentioned earlier, he signed a 12-year, $426 million contract last offseason, making him the highest-paid baseball player in history. Not only would he be the highest-paid player in White Sox history by far, he would be the highest-paid athlete of all time in the city of Chicago. The bottom line is, while any White Sox fan would love to buy a Sox jersey that says Trout on the back, there isn't really a path to make that reality currently. With Jerry Reinsdorf operating the Sox like a mid-market team in a major market city, it's a long stretch to say he would commit to paying a salary that high. Should the White Sox trade for Mike Trout? Absolutely. He immediately makes them a World Series contender for the next 11 years, regardless of who you give up for him. Will the White Sox actually trade for Mike Trout? If I've known anything about the Sox in my life, most likely not. But what do you think? Make sure to comment below and subscribe to Sports Broadcast Solutions.